Hello everyone. Thank you all for joining me today. I'm Judy Piper. I'm one of the engineering leads at Celo cLabs, and also the host for this Celo Tech Talk series. Celo Tech Talk series is one of many Celo Foundation's efforts to share and spread the Celo technology knowledge with the growing Celo community. For this reason, the first Celo Tech Talk back in April was introducing Celo and at a high level overview of Celo's full stack solution and its architecture and design. From that, we delved deeper into different building blocks of Celo during subsequent talks. And because Celo's mission is to build a financial system that creates the conditions of prosperity for everyone, we've done a lot of user research and market research, and based on those user research, we realized early on that we needed to build a mobile-first full-stack solution. And those mobile-first full-stack solution approach impacted a lot of every layer of the stack that we built and then designed. So we gave a technical deep dive on each different layer, and we did a deep dive on Valora, which was the Celo mobile app wallet that highlights the vision of building a truly mobile-first and accessible financial system. And we went a deep dive into Celo's consensus mechanism, which is a proof of stake, and how Celo network works. Then we also talked about how validators incentivized to operate and run the Celo mainnet in a secure, resilient, and reliable way. We also talked about stability protocol, governance, price oracle, phone number privacy, SDK, and how Celo cLabs engineering works in the field, and many other sessions. And in the last Tech Talk, we even went pretty deep into the Celo's blockchain layer. So if you missed any of those sessions and want to catch up, all of those previous Celo Tech Talks are available on YouTube, so please check them out. For this session, for this Tech Talk, we are switching gears a little bit, and instead talking about talks, we'll start a multi-parts workshops. Barbara is going to do that, and so you can roll up your sleeves and get it on the action of building your first DApps on Celo. And I'm super excited to have a Barbara, who is a dev experience team's lead at cLabs and joined me today. And before we kick things off, I would love to get to know Barbara first. Welcome, Barbara.
Hey, thanks for the intro, Judy.
Yeah, maybe you can introduce yourself and how you got to work on Celo, and your background and what you are focusing on these days.
Yeah, for sure. So sorry. I don't know if you can see my dog. He's bugging me. So well, I guess I'll start with like the fun intro, but my name is Barbara Liau, and I currently work at cLabs as the lead for the developer experience engineering team. And a little bit about me, I have been in crypto for about 4+ years. And I got my start in crypto working at Storage, which is a decentralized storage solution. And did a lot of work there. And then after that, I did some consulting for some other blockchain companies, and then started a company called Suma. And we did cross-chain interoperability solutions. And then that was like a lot of fun, and I got to have a lot of different exposures to different blockchains and projects. And that was great just because we're able to see all the different types of projects that there were, and the focuses and the strengths and weaknesses between all of them. And, not just on like Ethereum based blockchains, but also like Bitcoin as well. And a couple months ago, we joined cLabs, and at cLabs, like I said, I work on developer experience. And what that really means is, developing and maintaining tools so that people can build on the Celo blockchain, as well as like contribute to the blockchain as well. Oh, sorry. So I see this comment. So yes, we're actually going to be prepping to do that today, to build a mobile app on Celo. And yeah, so just a little bit about me. I have 2 dogs. This is my dog Ulrich. I just got a new puppy about 3 weeks ago. So our life has been very fun. And I love plants and like learning new things. I've been
Coffee
told that I
too,
have.
right?
Oh yes, I also love coffee. I'm like a collector of hobbies. In the winter, I crochet and knit, and in the summer, I usually like go hiking, as well as do some like other fun stuff. So yeah, that's me. And so I'm really excited to do this presentation today. It is going, like Judy said, it's going to be a multi-part. And so we're going to start like focusing today is just like doing the setup and making sure that we have the environment to build mobile applications on Celo.
Should we share the Notion link with the?
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
let me actually, we'll go through like the quick agenda first, and then I'll
Mm-hmm.
share that out.
Yeah.
And so with this, the agenda, we're just going to do a quick overview of like moving from Web 2 to Web 3. So my background was first initially in Web 2. I worked for a small startup that made snow machines for ski resorts. And we worked a lot with like radios and kind of like IoT stuff and real-time databases. And in a lot of ways, like I think people have a misconception that Web 2 and Web 3 are very, very different, but they're actually like pretty similar. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we'll just do a quick overview of the Celo blockchain and its mission. We won't spend a lot of time just because I know that we've done a lot of deep dives with some of the Celo talks, and it's not very necessary at this point to have like a very deep understanding. We'll do that in later sessions. And then what we're going to look at is the developer toolkit for Celo. There's a lot of different tools that you need to have and set up in order to do mobile development. So we're going to like do a high-level overview of all the different tools that you'll probably encounter. And then we're going to go through and set up the development environment. And it does take some time, so this is why we're going to take one whole session to do this. Okay. So moving to the blockchain, Web 2 essentially is just, we have your applications, right? And all that code that runs the application is centralized in some private computer and database, and you can't see it, you can't inspect that code, you can't make sure that it's actually doing what you're saying. So, not to pick on like any particular application, but just like, for example, like Facebook, we think that we know how it works, but we don't really, because we can't look at the code. Same thing with, like Instagram or Twitter, all that code that runs that, and even your like banks, the code that runs that we can't see. And so they could be changing things and we don't know how that works and we can't inspect it. Whereas with Web3, the biggest difference is that applications, their code is public. We can inspect it and we can make sure that the code is running in the way that the developers say it is. The data is also public as well. And in like a very weird like contradiction, the like publicizing your data actually like protects it. And like having your code viewable actually makes it safer. And the blockchain technology is the thing that makes that possible. Next slide. So we're just going to go over a quick little like architectural flow, kind of showing the similarities between them, in that you're still going to think about your application in the same way. So for a application, whether you're developing a Web 2 or Web 3, so whether you're building like just a regular web app or like a decentralized application, you're going to have a front end, and that's going to be either mobile or it's going to be web, so on your desktop, right? And you could even do like desktop applications. I didn't put that there, but that is something that you can do as well. Like if you built like an Electron app, for example. So you're going to have like a client UI, and then you're probably going to have like an application server to, if you are running like Node stuff. And so the languages that you're going to use are going to be the same. You're going to be using JavaScript or TypeScript. If you use a framework like React or Vue or Angular, that is still going to be the same. If you start doing mobile development, you're going to be doing like React Native or like Vue Native, NativeScript. So all that is the exact same, whether you're doing Web 2 or Web 3. That part doesn't change, which is, I think, once you realize that, very exciting, because Web 3 and like blockchain development becomes very accessible. And so then as we move into the function and like how the application functions, that's where the like divide kind of happens. So with a regular web application, you would have like a centralized DB. You would have, like Mongo or SQL database where all your data would be. But because that data is protected, it's like hidden, from the public. If you want to go and look at your profile and the data that a company has on you, you are unable to do that unless they choose to share it with you. And whereas with the blockchain, you can look and see all the data that is associated with your information, like your accounts and everything. And the other thing too is that we have this concept of smart contracts, which is just code that is put on the blockchain, and you're able to hit it like kind of like an API. You can like hit these functions that are on the smart contracts, and because the code is public, you can see and make sure that the application is going to do exactly what the developer says it's going to do. So the function and state, so those are kind of like the two comparisons here, where instead of a centralized database, you're going to have like a blockchain. And then if you're doing a financial application or some application that transfers value, you're going to have a payment processor. In a Web 2 application, this looks like having like PayPal or Stripe, right? Where when you process that, the application itself doesn't do that, but they'll like get a token, right? And then they will initiate that transaction. Whereas on the blockchain, you would interact with a crypto wallet. For the desktop, a very popular one that most people are probably familiar with is MetaMask. It would be a hardware wallet like Ledger, or like a mobile-based wallet, which is what Celo uses. And you can also use Ledger as well for your Celo wallet. And this is probably the biggest difference here in terms of like developing an application that requires a little bit more setup. And then when there's a state change, and that will populate itself on the blockchain in Web 3 and then centralized DB in Web 2. So it's just like an overview of the architectural flow of like information and how things work. And I kind of wanted to spend like time talking about that just because, because I think knowing that is very empowering if this is your first time building a blockchain application, because it can feel very familiar. So there are a lot of different blockchains. Obviously, you know about Celo since you're here at the Celo Tech Talk, and they all focus on different things. So some blockchains focus on privacy. They have others focus on like the programmability of the blockchain. Some focus on accessibility. There's a lot of different focuses of a blockchain, and there's that 3 things. You can only pick 2 of 3, and that's like you can either pick like quality and speed, or speed and accuracy, etc. So you have to choose what your blockchain focuses on, and you have to narrow your focus. So for Celo, our focus is on bringing financial prosperity and like financial inclusion to everyone. And so the focus of Celo's blockchain is making it like lightweight and mobile first. So Celo is a permissionless platform that makes financial tools accessible to anyone with a mobile phone. So because of that mission statement, the decisions that go into, what are we going to do for Celo and like, what are we going to be building and focusing on, that is what is driving this. And this is something to note that we do have two digital assets right now on the Celo blockchain. So in Bitcoin, you're going to have Bitcoin, and Ethereum, you have Ether, and on Celo, you have Celo. That's just called Celo, which is the native asset. It was previously known as Celo Gold, and there are still some references to that in the code and elsewhere. But if you see Celo Gold and Celo, just know that they're the same thing. With the CUSD, this is a stable currency, and it's soft pegged to the US dollar. And this is built into the network at the protocol level. This is something that really helps in terms of like adoption, because it's very difficult to do a transaction with an asset that has a fluctuating value. And so because Celo fluctuates in value, people may not want to use it. But having a stable asset like CUSD, people can know that the amount that they send is going to be the amount that the recipient receives. And so this is important just to make sure that the system functions properly, that people are incentivized to, the operators are incentivized with the mission of the blockchain, and that this is how we're able to build applications to bring financial services to anyone with a mobile device. Just a quick overview. The Celo project is a complete build from the bottom, foundational from the Celo blockchain to Celo core contracts and the applications. And so there's all these layers that work together. The contracts, that's something that we'll touch a little bit more on the previous in the next sessions, as well as there are previous Celo talks that talk a lot more in depth about these. But I just want to kind of point those out because we did talk about the smart contracts and the core contracts. This is what runs on the Celo blockchain, and the applications will interact with these contracts in order to send and receive transactions. Here's just wanted to see so you can see that there are a lot of different contracts that run on the Celo blockchain, and secure it and make sure that it runs the way that it's supposed to. And what's cool is that, like I said, the code is public, so you can go and see these contracts, you can inspect them, you can be familiar with them and interact with them and make sure that they are what Celo says that they are. And as you write the applications, your smart contracts will interact with some of these smart contracts. If you are currently a Web3 developer, you might notice that building on Celo is very similar to building on Ethereum. This is because we do have shared ancestry with Ethereum. There are some key differences. We're not going to really touch on that. That's not really relevant to this session. But just know that some of the tools that we're going to talk about are Ethereum tools, but we can still use them because of the compatibility that we have with the EVM, which is the Ethereum virtual machine. And okay. So now that we've kind of talked about the overview and how Web3 is really not that different from Web 2 in a lot of ways, and there are a lot of differences in terms of developing, that you have to be familiar with some tools. So here's, I just compiled a list of tools that you'll probably use if you are going to develop a Celo application. We're just going to go over these just kind of quickly. The contract kit, this is a code, it's a package that it allows you to programmatically interact with the Celo contracts. There's the Celo CLI. You could also probably run some stuff here, but this is really just so that from your command line, you can check the state of the Celo blockchain and accounts. There's the Ganache CLI. Again, if you are familiar, if you've done some Ethereum development, this Ganache is a local blockchain for you to do testing on. And because we do have some differences, we've forked this, the Ganache CLI, and modified it for the Celo blockchain. There's Block Scout, which is a website. This allows you to view the transactions and other data for the Celo blockchain. The Celo wallet, we're going to spend some time setting this up today. This allows you to actually develop mobile applications and be able to like test it. The Alpha Horus is our testnet. So with blockchains, there are levels of tests, like you say. So when you develop an application, right, you typically develop locally. And then you want to be able to have some environment that simulates the real world, because you don't want to be sending real dollars and real assets in order to just make sure your code works. So blockchains provide testnets in order for you to do that. Alpha Horus is the developer testnet. We also have another one called Baklava. That one is more geared towards validators. So if you want to look at that, you're more than welcome to. But the testnet that we're going to do all our testing on is Alpha Horus. If you're coming from Ethereum, this is similar to like Kovan and Wrinklebee. Those are like testnets that you would use. The other thing that to be familiar with on Celo is Forno. So this is a hosted chain. This is so cLabs hosts the Celo blockchain so that you can, they have trusted nodes and you can like query it for information if you didn't want to run your own. And then we have DAppKit. This is also a, go away. This is also like a code package, and this is what will help you to be able to build mobile dApps. Just a quick information for you, if you're not already part of the developer community, this is a really great way to ask questions, to get involved, and to just get like familiar with everyone. We have you can check out the website, celo.org/developers, there's Twitter, and then our documentation. So DAppKit, just a little bit more about this. I just want to give a quick overview, because this might be your first time developing on Celo, it might be first time developing on blockchain, and this is probably your first time doing mobile development. And similar to how Web 2 and Web 3 are quite similar, developing on mobile is not a big switch in terms of how you're going to code your application if you're going from web to mobile. There's a lot of really great tools that are being built. You can still write your applications in JavaScript or TypeScript, and there's like frameworks and everything. And DAppKit, we put together DAppKit to make that a little bit easier for you. So this is just like, I just wanted to show this example. We're not going to go into the code, but I just wanted to show you what we're like working towards. We're setting up our development environment so that we can build an application on mobile and interact with the Celo wallet, and then send and receive transactions. And so this is what that looks like here. Great. So this that's just like a little bit of background in order for us to get started setting up our development environment. So I am going to share this link in the chat, and then we're going to set this up together. Some of this might be like a review if you've already set up, but I just wanted to, some of the stuff I wanted to go over and install together, just because you might be coming from like maybe a Python background or Ruby background, or you're coming from deeper down in the stack and you don't have as much web-based experience. And so I wanted to make sure that we started from the very foundational level so everyone can follow along. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch my screen. If you're not already on your laptop, go ahead and get on your laptop so you can follow along, especially if you haven't already set up if you haven't set up your dev environment yet. So let me switch that. So it's my first time using Crowdcast. I'm trying to figure out how to switch. Okay. So can everyone see that? Okay, actually, you know, it's probably like tiny, huh?
Looks like we lost Barbara. We're having some technical issue. Hang tight, folks.
Okay.
Okay, we are back.
Sorry, that was like user error. I was clicking too quickly and I deleted the video.
Okay, so I'm going to go backstage.
Okay. Thanks for your patience, everyone. So hopefully that gave you a moment to grab some coffee or some tea. Okay, there we go. So if you're on this link here, you feel free to comment. You do need to have a Notion account to make comments. The accounts are free, so if you want to make any comments, please feel free to do so, or you can like ask them in the chat. But I will go ahead and we're just going to go through this together and make sure that we have a good environment. So we'll go all the way up here and make sure this is big. Is this big enough for everyone? Let me know if you can't see that. Okay, so just a kind of like preface, given like the time and everything, we're only going to be focusing on installing and developing on a Mac, but there are instructions if you're on Linux or Windows. We're just not going to go over them in this, but there you can follow the links and you can do all that. Just kind of ignore my instructions, but like know that these are the tools that we're installing. Some of these are Mac specific. So you'll just need to like look at the instructions and do that for your particular operating system. So first, like, thanks for doing this and joining us. Like, I'm really excited to do this. I'm really passionate about having more people develop on Celo and making this experience as easy for you to follow. Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Josh. Yeah, so Josh just posted that in the channel that you can start to follow develop on Windows. There's also a link here if you are on the Notion document. So just I've kind of broken this down into prerequisites on Web 2. So whether you're developing a web application or like a blockchain application, these are kind of prerequisites that you're going to run into. These are not specific to blockchain. And then on the bottom part, the tools there that we're going to talk about are specific to blockchain and Celo in particular. So first, this is a little bit out of order, but we're going to go ahead, and if you want to click this Xcode link, it's actually, well, it's going to like bring us down here. But Xcode is required for the Celo wallet. It is a big download though. So I wanted to start this first. So if you are following along, you can start the download and install in the background while we're doing this. It's Xcode, we need it to build and deploy the Celo wallet. So even if you don't have an iOS device, Xcode can emulate one. So you do need to have an Apple developer account, which is free, but you don't need to be part of the Apple developer program. And that does cost money in order to download Xcode. So you can go ahead and click on that link. You can sign in with your Apple developer ID, and then you can start the download for Xcode. And so, like I said, it's pretty big. So depending on your internet connection, it could take a while. And so go ahead and start downloading that, check it once in a while. And when it does finish downloading, go ahead and like open and install the file. Okay, so now we're gonna jump back up here to the beginning. And we're going to make sure that we have the right Node environment. So if you're not familiar with Node, Node is a JavaScript runtime that allows you to execute JavaScript code outside of the web browser. It's open source server environment. It's a lot of people write it if they're writing full stack JavaScript applications, but there are a lot of different versions. And so you actually may have Node installed, but you might not have the right version. So we're gonna make sure that we have that. The other thing that you should be aware of is NPM, which stands for Node Package Manager. When you develop code, people can put it up and publish it for other people to use. And NPM allows, well, you register your package there, and then people can use NPM to download and then like consume your code. And then we have NVM. So NVM is a Node version manager. So if you're doing a lot of different projects, you're going to probably be switching back and forth between Node versions. And I personally use NVM. A lot of people recommend it. NPM recommends NVM. For Windows users, there's Notice and NVM Windows. So you can use one of those. But the idea is that you want to be able to switch between versions based on the projects that you're using. Node LTS is currently like 14, Stable is 12, and Celo uses 10. So this is why it's important to have this. Even if you already have Node, you're going to want to install a version manager. Otherwise, you're going to be like installing and reinstalling, and it's a little bit of a mess. So the easiest way to install NVM is just to curl it and let it run the install script. So if you want to make sure that this link is correct, you can go ahead and like click this link here, which will open up the GitHub for NVM. And you can use wget as well, or if you want to, you can like clone this and do this manually. So we will go ahead and copy this. Oh, whoops. Don't copy that. It doesn't work nicely. Do it this way. So that is just going to download that. I currently already have that. And so the way that you check it is you run command-v NVM. And as long as it outputs NVM, then you're good to go. There's the NVM guide has a lot of really good information, like if you're troubleshooting, if that install was difficult for you. And so if you need to do some troubleshooting, that's a great place to find all that information. And then now what we can do is install Node using NVM. So the way that works is you're going to do NVM install and then the version. Because Celo uses 10, Node version 10 dot whatever, we're going to, if you just put 10, it will install the latest 10 version. You can also, if you wanted like 10.10 or something, you can do that too. So we're going to install it. Mine's already installed, but if you haven't done that before, your download or your console output will look similar to this. And then we're going to use it. So pretty easy, where you say nvm use 10. And now we're using Node version 10.23. If you have a terminal setup, you can also set it so that you can see the Node version that you're on. Cool. So that's like the base. That's the most basic thing. That is like the basic requirement to do most tutorials that we have on Celo. So now that we have that, you should be able to follow all those pretty easily. The other thing that is for Mac users is Homebrew. And this is a way of managing packages on Mac OS. Oh, whoops, I forgot to put the link here, but the Homebrew website is brew.sh. And again, we're just going to run this install script. Not copy. There you go. And if you already have it, all it's going to do is just like reinstall it. That's not a big deal. And then the other thing that while we're waiting for that to happen is in order to get the latest packages that are on Brew, you do need to run Brew update every once in a while. And that will update all the different packages that are available. I'm already up to date, so it told me that. This is like sticking. There you go. Cool. So Brew, we'll be using Brew a lot as we install some of the later packages. If you don't have that, then you'll just follow the separate instructions for your particular operating system. The other thing that we need to have is Yarn. So NPM comes bundled with Node, so we don't need to install that separately. But Yarn is a package manager similar to NPM. For the most part, they do the same thing, but you don't want to use both of them in one project. You're either going to use Yarn or you're going to use NPM in a project. And typically, a project will tell you which one to use. They'll either say use Yarn or use NPM or Yarn or use NPM. And that's usually going to be in the README or package.json. So, but running the Celo development blockchain does require Yarn, so we will need to install it. There's two ways that you can install this. The Yarn website shows that you can install Yarn with NPM, and you can also install Yarn with Homebrew. So if you're on Mac, you can go ahead and install with Homebrew. Otherwise, you can install with NPM. I initially installed it with NPM, so I'm going to go ahead and install it with NPM. Just if you're not familiar with the -G flag, that just means it's short for --global, which means you're going to install this on your whole system and it's accessible in any project that you're in. Cool. So now that we have Yarn, and just a quick overview, what we've done so far, we've started the download for Xcode. So if you're downloading that, go ahead and check it and install the .xip or open it, forget which the term is, but go ahead and like keep doing that because that also takes a while. We have installed NVM, which is a Node version manager, and that allows us to change versions of Node. We've installed Homebrew, which is a package manager for Mac OS, which allows us to install other like software packages. And we've installed Yarn, which is another package manager for Node packages and modules. And it works a little bit differently than NPM, and you're going to use one or the other per project. So the next thing that we're going to look at is Expo. So Expo is a framework and a platform for universal React applications. So it lets you build apps for iOS and Android, but using the same code. And this is similar to how if you, if you've written vanilla JavaScript, there's a lot of stuff that maybe you like abstract away and you have frameworks so that you can continue to write code that feels familiar, and like a lot of stuff is you don't have to worry about. And what's really cool about Expo is because you don't need to write, like Swift or Java to write mobile applications, you can still write in JavaScript and TypeScript. And which is really cool because that means you don't have to be like a quote unquote mobile developer to build mobile apps. And so the way that we're going to do this is really easy. NPM is awesome in that aspect. So now we're going to install globally the Expo CLI. And that's it for Expo. The other thing that you'll probably want to have is Docker. This is a way that developers can build and share containerized applications. So for example, instead of like having to do all this stuff, you could do this in a Docker and like share the image, and all this stuff just runs for you. And so we do have that for some of our tools. So you're going to want to install the Docker desktop for your operating system. If you have Mac, install it for Mac, if you have Windows and Linux. Once you've done that, Docker is going to be accessible through the command line Docker, and you can see the version using the -s version flag. So Expo CLI is going to take a while. So you can go ahead and do Docker. So we'll wait for that to finish. So yeah, quick overview for that. After we do all these kind of like Node JavaScript stuff, we have Expo, which is a framework for writing React Native applications. And then we have Docker. So now that we have these like Web 2 prerequisites, we're going to focus on go over the Celo prerequisites. So Truffle. Because Celo blockchain has shared ancestry with Ethereum, and we have the compatibility with the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, that means that we can use a lot of the Ethereum tools to develop Celo applications. And Truffle is one of them. It's a development framework. So just like how we'd use React or Expo, Truffle is also a framework. The language that smart contracts are written in that are EVM compliant are written in a language called Solidity. It feels very much like JavaScript if you looked at it, and TypeScript as well, because there are types. So if you were to write contracts in just Solidity, it's very similar to writing like vanilla JavaScript. You have to do a lot of imperative code. There's a lot of like setup and scaffolding that you have to do. And Truffle takes all that away so that you don't have to worry about it. Just how like React or Vue or Angular or other frameworks take all that like scaffolding away so that you can just focus on writing your code. And so that's what Truffle is. And again, the way that we install that, we're going to install that with NPM, and we're going to install it globally. So we're going to NPM install -g Truffle. And so that's nice there. The next thing that we're going to do is a development blockchain. So when you're developing on blockchain, you're going to want like a test blockchain, right? You're not going to want to develop on mainnet. If you do, you're very brave, or you have a lot of like extra money, because it is real money that and real digital assets, I should say, real digital assets that you're going to be sending back and forth. And the Ganache is part of the Truffle tool suite. Everyone loves to kind of like stick with this theme, so they're kind of like desserts. So Truffle and Ganache, and Ganache is they advertise as a one-click blockchain, so that you can just run a blockchain locally. You don't have to worry about sending real digital assets, messing things up. You can like play with it back and forth, and it has some really cool features. Because Celo is not exactly Ethereum, and there are differences, we've actually forked the Celo Ganache CLI and published that to NPM. So you can install that with npm install-g at celo/ganache-cli. And just a quick note here, when you see these like at whatever, like at ESLint or at Celo or at whatever project, it's just like a namespace. And it's nice because then you kind of know that, oh, this organization put out this package. Not everyone does this, and it's relatively new, like in the last year or so or two, that they started doing this. But that's just what that means, so you're aware of that. So we're going to npm install-g at celo/ganache-cli, if I can spell. Cool. So that's the most lightest weight blockchain. But the other option, if you're going to, so if you're just doing like starting out or just wanted to like do a quick little application test, that's a really good one. Or if you're like doing a basic app. But for anything more involved, you want the Celo development blockchain. And that takes a little bit longer to set up. The full instructions can be found here on the Celo docs. So you can like follow along and, oh yeah, right here. And then go to the monorepo for like even more docs. So what I've actually done is just pulled out the relevant ones for Mac. And so again, sorry if you're on like Windows or like Linux, but you can look at there and like follow the specific ones for your system. So we're going to download the Celo monorepo. We're going to clone that. I actually think I already have this, so I'm not going to run it because, so yeah, it's already exists. We'll go ahead and run that, and it will clone the Celo monorepo. Then we're going to cd into that project. So cd monorepo. And then we're going to install the project dependencies. And like I said, you're not going to use npm, you're going to use yarn. So we're just going to yarn, and that installs everything. And that is going to take some time. So we're going to like, just kind of like go through this other stuff while this is happening. Once this is done, you're also going to build the packages. Oh, I thought this would take less time because I already did this. That's fine. Then we're going to like do the yarn build. I thought I already did this too. I remember my password. Then we're going to build. You know what? Actually, I'm going to skip that just because it's going to take a little bit of time and we're running out of time. Actually, no. We'll pretend we ran that. So we're going to build. And after everything builds, we're going to go into the contract kit package. Inside of this package, so make sure that you're inside the package, you're going to run yarn test :reset && yarn test : live chain. And what that's going to do is just reset everything so it's clean, and then it's just going, and then it's going to run the live chain. There's a lot of stuff that happens here. Contracts get deployed, protocol contracts get deployed. If you remember that slide that had all the different contract architecture, there's quite a few of them. So those get deployed on the blockchain, Ganache starts, and now we have a running development blockchain. So you'll need to leave this window open in order for that to access that blockchain. If you want to terminate it, just close the window, or you can do Control-C to stop it. So let's go ahead and open up, we'll open up a new window. So we can just leave that Ganache chain running. We're not going to use it, but just for kicks and giggles, we'll leave it running. The other thing you're going to want to install is the Celo CLI. So if you remember back when we talked about the tools, this is a command line tool for interacting with the Celo protocol smart contracts. So you're going to install that with npm install -g at celo/celo CLI. Again, I'm not going to install it, just I think we're running out of time here. But again, it's going to output like a lot of logs, and then it's going to show you the end and the version that was installed. We're currently at version 0.0.6, and that is the latest one. And then lastly, we're going to install the Celo wallet. So we needed all of that stuff previously so that we could be ready to install this. And then just to like make sure that we have everything we need, right? And so Celo wallet, that's a development wallet that we need in order to get onto the Celo network, manage our funds, and send payments. Because we don't have like a web wallet like MetaMask, and because Celo is a mobile-first development application, this is why we have focused on those toolings and that part of application development. And so we have several projects underway to have that web wallet. We know that there's demand for it, but at this time we're going to like focus on the mobile applications. So the prerequisites for on a Mac is you're going to want to install Watchman, and you're going to do that with Brew. So we already updated our Brew, so then all we have to do is install Watchman with Brew install Watchman. And that's easy enough. We'll let that install, or it froze. We'll troubleshoot that later. Hopefully you didn't have any issues with that. The other thing we need, so we already talked about Xcode. This is why I wanted to start this in the background, download it, install it, follow all the information for that. And what we'll need to have is, you can choose actually if you want to do like iOS or Android. We're only going, I put the instructions for both, but in the interest of time, we're just going to do the iOS one. And this, you do need to make sure in the iOS directory of the mobile package in the monorepo. So actually, we're just going to go back to this, close this chain, because we're already here in the monorepo on this side. So we're going to go up one level. So now we're in the packages directory. We're going to go into the mobile package and then the iOS folder. And we're going to install CocoaPods and Bundler. So we're going to do gem install CocoaPods. And I'm not going to run it just because it's going to take a little bit. Gem install Bundler. And then you're going to download the project dependencies with bundle install. And then making sure that you're in the correct directory, you're going to do bundle exec pod install. If your machine doesn't recognize the gem command at the beginning, you might need to download Ruby. So the link is there for that. If you did not want to do iOS, you could do Android. And so you'll need to just follow the instructions here to install Java, which is easy using Brew. You'll install the DevTools using Brew again, and then install Android Studio and the Android NDK, and then follow the rest of these to make sure that the exports are in your bash profile or your zshrc or whatever shell that you're using. And then you're going to install the Android 29 platform. And then you're going to install the Android emulator. And the emulators allow you to emulate, right? Like a mobile device without having a mobile device. So even if you don't have like an iPhone or you don't have an Android, you can use an emulator to start one up and like run your application on that. So that is everything that you need to get started developing on Celo. I know that it's quite a lot, but once you have that installed, it should be fairly easy to like get going. As a bonus, because we're going to be writing Solidity, you might want to install like a syntax, support for Solidity. I use VS Code, but whatever you're using, if you're using Atom or Sublime or Vim, you can install the support for Solidity. Okay, so I know that was a lot, and I wanted to save a couple minutes for questions here. So probably the most important thing here that might be different from your particular development environment, if you're already a web developer, is this section right here, where you need to just be familiar with Truffle, the development blockchain for Celo, the Celo CLI, and then the Celo wallet. This can take a while to install. A lot of that is just because of Xcode and just waiting for things to download and install. So that's everything for this session. And now that we have our development environment set up, we can go into writing code and having a good development environment so that we can see our application and make sure that it's running the way that we want to. And so we're going to do all that in the next part of the series. So yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know. If some of these instructions were unclear, please reach out to us. You can reach out to us on Discord. And Josh put the link on the chat. So yeah, thanks everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Barbara. Usually I would do the introduction to the next session, but we're going to have Barbara again in the next session. So make sure you come back and join us.
Yeah, that's great. I know we have a couple minutes. Does anyone have any questions?
We do have 2 questions. I want to ask a question.
There it is.
Is there any plan to integrate and cLabs builder as you did with the Ganache?
I am not familiar with that status, but I can check for you and let you know.
Cool. When developing an app, should we be doing it as a native app or cross-platform? Since you're mobile first, the question.
Yeah, so what's great about the DApp kit and using React Native and Expo is that you're actually developing both of those at the same time. The code that you're writing, that's JavaScript and TypeScript, is going to be compiled, and it will be available for both Android and iOS. There are some things to note for that. It's like you'll need to sign up for like Apple Developer Program if you're developing an iOS application, but the answer is yes, you should be developing. I would say it's always best to do a cross-platform, or depending on your audience. If you're building an application that's specific to an audience that it's heavily Android or heavily iOS, that's really up to you whether you're going to do a native app or cross-platform. But for the most distribution, I think developing cross-platform is great, and you're already going to be doing that if you use Expo and you use the DApp kit. Great questions.
Cool. We are at a time. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us. And thank you, Barbara, and looking forward to seeing you again next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Ciao.
Bye.